number of active COVID-19 cases declined for the first time in over 2 months. Active cases dropped by 54, even as recoveries clocked their biggest 24-hour surge. Total cases rise by 52,000 to cross 19 lakh. The Supreme Court takes up a PIL seeking a price cap on COVID-19 treatment in private hospitals, observes that the centre must ensure insurance companies pay hospital dues promptly, even as private hospitals argue that there should be no cap for patients with insurance and comorbidities. The centre says decisions on price caps should be left to states. Mumbai records its heaviest rainfall since 2005. Road traffic disrupted, several trees uprooted, roads waterlogged. Local authorities warn of flash flooding in several parts. The signage of the iconic BSC building topples due to the heavy wind. Prime Minister Modi lays the foundation stone for the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, says this temple will usher in an era of unity and progress. 175 people present at the ceremony, including RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat, UP Governor Anandiben Patel and Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. The market fails to hold on to early gains, ends on a flat note. The Sensex ends 25 points lower. The Nifty is up just 6 points for the day. Gold hits another record high at over 55,000 rupees per 10 grams on sustained safe haven buying. SEBI Chief Ajay Tyagi gets another 18-month extension. This is the second extension and will take his term to the end of February 2022, a full 5 years from when he took over the post. As the RBI's Monetary Policy Committee gets into a huddle, the street is divided on the outcome. CNBC TV 18's poll of economists and bankers show 50% expect a 25 basis point cut to the repo rate. The other 50% believe inadequate transmission may prompt a status quo. In the Bhushan Power case, banks tell the Supreme Court that JSW Steel is misusing the Enforcement Directorate investigation into Bhushan Power to avoid the implementation of the 19,700 crore rupee resolution plan. The Supreme Court to hold a final hearing on the 8th of September. Lebanon's capital, Beirut, wakes up to devastation after a huge explosion kills 100 people, wounds more than 4,000. Rescuers continue to search for victims. The blast also destroys silos containing 85% of the country's food grain reserves. The city's governor says half of the city is damaged. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. India's COVID-19 tally has crossed the 19 lakh mark with over 5.8 lakh active cases. Recoveries continue to rise and now above 12.8 lakh. However, the daily surge in cases remains above 50,000 for the 7th straight day. But the recovery rate has also seen a 67%. That is where it's coming in at, with more than 51,000 people recovering in the last 24 hours to 8 a.m. this morning. Active cases have dropped by 54 during this period. Among districts, Pune, Bengaluru and Thane have the most active caseload. 3 worst-hit districts in the top 10 are from Andhra Pradesh. The caseload in Mumbai and Chennai remains largely steady. Delhi has less than 10,000 active cases, showing a steady drop. Some of the other COVID-related headlines we are tracking this evening. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has been discharged from hospital after recovering from COVID-19. He had been admitted to hospital for 11 days after testing positive on the 25th of July. Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan tweeted last night that he has been tested positive for coronavirus. He's been admitted to the Medanta Hospital in Gurgaon. He's the second central minister to be infected by the virus after Home Minister Amit Shah. Over 10,000 policemen in Maharashtra have contracted COVID-19 so far. Of these, 107 have died, including 10 officers. Officials say 50% of the fatalities are from the Mumbai police. The Supreme Court today heard a PIL that sought a cap on the treatment cost for COVID-19 at private hospitals. Now, while the centre says this decision should be left to states, private hospitals have argued that a price cap is grievously hurting them. They also opposed capping treatment costs for patients covered under health insurance or those who have comorbidities. At least 10 states, including Maharashtra, Delhi, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Telangana, have set a ceiling on treatment cost, though the rates are different in each state. The Supreme Court will now hear the matter again in 2 weeks. We spoke with the top healthcare service providers in the country. Sunita Reddy of Apollo Hospitals, Ashutosh Raghuvanshi, Fortis CEO, Dr. Alok Roy of Medica Group of Hospitals. They believe that the government needs to rethink and review the price cap for COVID-19 treatment at private hospitals. They're saying the industry is in dire straits, close to breaking point. Listen in.
So yes, I think these price caps in some way are self-defeating. But having said that, I think most of the cases, we've already done quite a few cases. We've done over 30,000 cases with the price caps. So I believe that I hope that going forward, the government will be more open about pricing.
Yeah, so we have been also dealing with the price cap in most of the states we operate. There is already some kind of price cap or the other. We have also treated somewhere close to about 18 to 20,000 patients by now. And this definitely has been a very trying time. I also expect the government to be a little more proactive and open, as Sunita said, because these prices are simply not sustainable. Patient does not require a binary treatment for COVID, which is A or B. Their patients are complex, they have comorbidities, and they require specialized treatments at times. So the costs are going to be different, and hence the bill is going to be different.
Well, that is the SOS coming in from the top healthcare service providers in the private sector to the government seeking a review of the price caps. The Supreme Court will take up that matter in 2 weeks. Mumbai getting pounded by heavy rains and high wind speed for the second day in a row, but today seems to be much worse. These rains are the heaviest since 2005, and local authorities are warning of flash flooding in many areas. Several areas are already seeing a hampering of traffic movement. Right now on your screens, you're looking at visuals of waterlogging at Wilson College in the south of Mumbai. Heavy rains and gusty winds have also uprooted several trees, leading to traffic jams in several parts of the city, including the Western Expressway, which is an arterial road. Commuters had to face the brunt, with cars getting damaged. You are now looking at visuals shot by our colleague Manglam Malu on his way back home from work earlier this evening, and you can see just how difficult it must have been to get home. Local trains, which are currently used only by essential workers, have been suspended on the Harbour Line and also on the Western Line. Finally, in visuals that truly capture the ferocity of the winds, the iconic signage of the Bombay Stock Exchange building has toppled. The head of the exchange, Ashish Chauhan, has tweeted saying that they are seeking the help of the fire brigade to ensure that the signage doesn't fall to the ground and injure anyone or create property damage. That tells you the extent of the wind speed that Mumbai is seeing this evening. Well, we hope everyone stays safe in the city. But a quick check of the day's trading action, where the markets failed to hold on to their opening gains, closing pretty much unchanged. The Sensex ending the day 25 points lower. The Nifty gained about 6 points. The mid-cap index and the Nifty Bank index also ended marginally higher. Well, that was the story for the equity markets. But look at gold prices continuing to hit historic highs, driven by huge demand from investors. Now, gold prices have crossed $2,000 per ounce, and in the domestic market, gold futures breaching 55,000 rupees per 10 grams. Gold prices have surged by 38.5% so far this year, making it the most sought-after investment asset in this pandemic. So that is gold for you, continuing to touch new highs. Well, the government has decided to extend the tenure of current SEBI chief Ajay Tyagi by 18 months to February 28, 2022. Remember, this is the second extension for the SEBI chief, whose term was also extended by 6 months in February when he completed 3 years as SEBI chairman. So this is probably going to be the longest tenure that we've seen for a SEBI chief. Mortgage giant HDFC will launch a mega qualified institutional placement exercise to raise 14,000 crore rupees in a single tranche comprising equities and warrants. The company will use the money to strengthen its balance sheet and scout for M&A opportunities in the COVID era. Max founder Analjit Singh has sold over 2% stake in Max Financial through a block deal today. This deal has raised 326 crore rupees, which will be used by the company to release pledged shares. Telecom companies write to the government seeking a timeline for spectrum to be made available for 5G field trials. Sources say the telecom sector has requested that spectrum be provided by September, as it needs 6 to 9 months of trials before the auction can begin. Well, the three-day meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee is currently underway and a decision is expected tomorrow. The street is divided right down the middle on what the decision is likely to be. 50% expect a rate cut and the other 50% expect a status quo. But 70% expect a 50 basis point cut sometime in this cycle. The remaining 35% expect a 25 basis point cut in this financial year. So watch out for the MPC. We will get you all the details live right here on CNBC TV 18. Well, this is also the last meeting of India's first ever Monetary Policy Committee. Lata joins us now with the report card. Lata.
Well, this month is historic because the 4-year term of the first ever Monetary Policy Committee comes to an end. This is important because until 4 years ago, the governor alone was deciding the interest rate in the economy, the repo rate. In 2016, this MPC was appointed with 3 external members who would decide which way the repo rates will go. So that first term of this committee comes to an end. It's important. What we're trying to do is to analyze its performance. The first part that hits you is that actually, as the term comes to an end, the MPC has become irrelevant. Why? Because the most important rate, the repo rate, is not the overnight rate anymore. There is so much liquidity that the reverse repo rate is actually the most meaningful rate, and the MPC does not vote on the reverse repo rate. The other reason that makes the MPC kind of less effective is that its mandate was to keep inflation under 6%, but for the last 6 months of the MPC's term, inflation has been averaging 6.5%. But that said, you will still have to agree that the MPC had some achievements, because it is not the MPC's fault that inflation is higher or it could not concentrate on inflation. Much of it was because of the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, the Reserve Bank had to give more attention to growth and put a lot of liquidity to help the system. Also, the MPC came at a time when there were too many NPAs in the system. So banks wanted lower deposit rates but would not lower lending rates because with that margin, they could provide for NPAs. Also, the Reserve Bank had to resort to a lot of surplus liquidity to push down yields in the economy. That also made the repo rate a little ineffective. So it's not really the MPC's fault, it's the situation in which it came. But look at the achievements. CPI has to be between 2 and 6% was its mandate. It was for 39 of the 46 months when it was in existence. It has achieved its target. Also, inflation became an important factor in policy making for the government. The government did everything it could to at least give the optics of fiscal restraint. Again, the Monetary Policy Committee was a very independent set of people. Nobody pointed a finger that they were influenced by the government, and the voting proved it. You know, only 9 times there was unanimous vote, 23 times there was split vote, indicating that there was a healthy disagreement and debate within the MPC. It also performed the important task of ring-fencing the governor. You know, previous governors, Dr. Subbarao, Dr. Rajan, Dr. Reddy, were all influenced, arm-twisted by the finance ministry. In this case, since 6 people were deciding, nobody could influence them much. Also, I think a big achievement of the MPC was that they gracefully accepted when the repo rate was no longer that relevant, or when inflation itself was not the key goal for the economy. When you have an epidemic, you don't look at these things, you have to look at survival first, and they took their irrelevance very gracefully. Now we have to look at the way forward because this committee's term comes to an end, and the framework also is valid only till March 21. It's a 5-year framework. When it is reviewed, and RBI has set up a committee to review it, a lot of things will have to be tweaked. First of all, the internal committee and public intellectuals will ask whether the repo rate is really effective in controlling inflation. And look at our inflation. It is basket is full of food and fuel, and both these are actually administered prices. Fuel price is administered by the government. Pushing up the repo rate up or down is not going to bring down fuel prices. Many of the food items are also subject to PDS prices, MSP prices, all administered prices. The fisc is very dominant in India. It owns the banks. As well, it is the dominant issuer of debt. What is the bond market? It is the government securities market. So because of this fiscal dominance, the effectiveness of the MPC and the market mechanism fails. Even the world is moving towards it. So when the new MPC framework is debated, all these points that the current MPC brings to the table will be debated.
all those points and the new constitution of the MPC, that itself will also have to be taken note of. Lata, many thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Modi today laid the first stone in the groundbreaking ceremony for the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat and other dignitaries were present at the occasion. Addressing the gathering, the Prime Minister described it as a golden moment in India's history, adding that the Ram Janmabhoomi stands liberated today. He also said the mandir will mark a decisive change in the economy of Ayodhya.
इस मंदिर के बनने के बाद अयोध्या की सिर्फ भव्यता ही नहीं बढ़ेगी, इस क्षेत्र का पूरा अर्थतंत्र भी बदल जाएगा। पूरी दुनिया से लोग यहां आएंगे। कई कई पीढ़ियों ने अखंड अविरत एक निष्ठ प्रयास किया है।
Well, that's the Prime Minister in Ayodhya. Pranshu Mishra joins us now with the highlights of that occasion. Pranshu, 175 dignitaries, and of course the ceremony still continues. Piece together for us what the day has been like.
Well, see, it has been a historic day, and I'd say the history has also been created in a sense that the Prime Minister's speech was very forward-looking speech. You clearly mentioned about the economic aspect. I'd like to remind you the very first opening remarks of the Prime Minister. Instead of Jai Shri Ram, which has been the slogan, the battle cry for Ram Bhakts, for VHP, RSS and the BJP workers, all through the years of temple movement, that Jai Shri Ram was today Jai Siya Ram. And now Jai Siya Ram in Awadh, or in this area of Awadh, Lucknow and Faizabad, denotes, the humble Ram, the Ram which is ready to embrace everyone. It is an area where Ram and Rahim coexist. And therefore, when Prime Minister talks that Ayodhya's Ram Temple will usher in an era of new economic growth, progress for Ayodhya. It can only be on the basis of, a peaceful society, a society which is a tolerant society. Prime Minister realizes that fact, and therefore it was a very forward-looking speech on the behalf of the Prime Minister. Similar sentiments are also echoed by Mohan Bhagwat, who said that Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam is the very idea of India's philosophy. And Ram Mandir will mark that extension of philosophy further, and India will take its place of pride in the League of World Nations. At the moment, this is the banks of Saryu, the Ram Ki Pedi behind me, and this entire area has been lit up with neon lights. Very soon there would be diyas, lakhs of diyas that would be lighted on the banks of River Saryu. So yesterday it was a Deepotsav, which was restricted for the movement of common people, and today if you see around me, just I'll ask my camera person to pan, you see all over the common Ayodhya Vasis, the people of Ayodhya. So it's a Mela, it's a fair-like situation here. Seems like it's a Dashehra Mela sort of situation, or Diwali Mela sort of scenario out here. Corona protocols for the moment, I'll say, unfortunately have been, kept aside. People from all walks of life assembled here at the Ram Ki Pedi to soak into the festivity, to soak into the Deepotsav, which comes hours after the Prime Minister's very forward-looking and historic speech.
Pranshu Mishra, many thanks for joining us. That is the latest there from Ayodhya, where the Prime Minister, along with several other dignitaries, laid the foundation stone for the Ram Temple. More national headlines. It's been a year since the centre revoked Article 370 and 35A in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, ending Kashmir's special status. Strict curbs and restrictions have been imposed in the valley as a precautionary measure against possible unrest. The administration, which had announced a 48-hour curfew beginning Tuesday morning, issued a fresh order last evening saying the curfew had been lifted as the raid remained incident-free, but made it clear that restrictions would continue in view of a spike in COVID-19 cases. The order states curbs ordered earlier under Section 144 and the Disaster Management Act will remain enforced. Well, up next, as shopping malls in Mumbai open their doors after more than 4 months, we get to a special report from Mumbai's High Street Phoenix. That and more when we get back. Malls in Mumbai reopened their gates for customers today after a span of over 4 months. However, movie theatres, food courts inside the malls will remain shut. Priya Sheth visited High Street Phoenix, a shopping mall in Mumbai's Lower Parel, to gauge the turnout. She brings us her report.
Well, the last 4 months have been a washout for malls in Maharashtra. The Shopping Centres Association of India estimates that the loss of business from malls in Maharashtra total to 40,000 crore rupees, with 70% of these business losses coming from malls in Mumbai. High Street Phoenix, one of the largest malls in South Mumbai. After 4 months of being shut, this mall has finally opened doors to customers. And at this point in time, this mall has about 264 stores. Out of these 264 stores, there are about 170 stores that have already started operations. And to discuss more, I have with me Mr. Rajendra Kalkar from Phoenix. Thank you very much for joining us today. Talk to us about the kind of stores that have opened up to customers. Is it across segments? Are there segments where stores have not operationalized as yet?
So you see, we have out of about 200 and 270 stores, 260 to 270 stores, about 60 are F&Bs, spas, salons, multiplex, gyms and all of them. So they perhaps may or may not open right now because all the F&Bs is only home delivery right now. But out of the balance 210, 220 stores, we have about 170 stores which have opened, which is a very, very good number. And I hope that the balance 10-20 stores also would open in the next 2-3 days. Today being a very rainy day, or last 2 days, the stores have not been able to complete the opening activities. So I expect another 10-15 stores to open in the next 2-3 days more also.
Well, the majority of the shoppers here are serious shoppers. There are very few window shoppers, and most of these shoppers are either looking for essentials or for products for which sizes are not available online.
Away from the mall was very difficult because I was like every weekend shopper, it was like a to-do list every weekend. You just have to go and shop from Palladium especially. So yeah, it was a difficult time, but online helped really a lot.
I've taken obviously all the precautions that are needed and following the terms and conditions the government has put when you're stepping out, and obviously the mall guys have put out. So we are abiding by that and we are just doing the needful,
Well, it being a rainy day, there are not too many customers here at the mall, but retailers are expecting that there will be more customers that will be coming in over the next couple of weeks, especially with the end of the season sales that have been on in all of the stores, and they expect categories like fashion and electronics to pick up steam. And of course, they do expect the festive season to bring back cheer to the malls going forward. In Mumbai, Priya Sheth.
So malls restarting in the financial capital, and there's good news for fitness enthusiasts as well. Yoga centers and gyms across cities reopened for business after being shut for over 4 months. They will, however, have to adhere to social distancing norms and hygiene protocols prescribed by the Home Ministry. Mugdha Variyar checked into Bengaluru's Elementi Fitness to find out how working out in the pandemic looks like.
Karnataka is among the few states to allow gyms and yoga centers to reopen starting August 5th. And here in Bangalore, several gyms are reopening, such as the one I am at, Element. Now, this usually has a capacity to have 70 people working out at one time. But right now, they brought down the limit to only 15 people at a time. And of course, working out is going to look very different in the new normal. Let's speak to the owner of the gym to understand what these new protocols mean. How did you decide that you wanted to reopen the gym today? Because several gyms are not actually reopening. How did you feel it was safe to reopen?
Open our gym, what are the precaution guidelines that has been provided by government? We've tried to follow that norms, and as per you said earlier, we've limited our people who walks in per hour basis. So right now we have only 15 people per every 90 minutes. So the other guidelines what we are taking is, so we tied up with Fraternity, and these guys are helping us to develop an app where people can book their prior slot while coming to the gym.
Are the protocols going to be feasible for you to follow? And having only 15 people at a time, is that going to be feasible for you to keep the gym open?
See, right now we've been shut for past 5 months. I think this is the worst affected industry. It's very niche market and people have not thought about it, but we are the worst affected industry.
You've decided to come here today when the gym reopening. What has your experience been like working out, especially wearing a visor?
So it's definitely feeling a little hot here, but this is the new normal, so I'm fine working out with this.
How did you decide you wanted to come here? Were you working out at home so far over the last few months?
Yes, I've tried working out at home, but home workouts are not for me. I need getting back trained, so I definitely need assistance from trainers, so I've come back.
Well, hotels, hospitality, fitness, these have been the sectors that have been impacted the most, starting to see some signs of life return. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. The news will continue.